Welcome to the Chemistry, Biology and Math Revision Hub. Today we are doing the biology topics. This is reproduction. Reproduction can be broken down into asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. During asexual reproduction, there are no specialized gametes, meaning there is no exchange of gametes, so there is no fertilization. In this process, cells just divide by mitosis to form structures that break away from the parent's body. For example, here we see this structure is being formed, it increases in size, and then it breaks away from the parent. Later, it becomes an in vitro organism. Offsprings produced in asexual reproduction are going to be genetically identical, meaning they have the same DNA. So the problem is if environmental conditions change, there is a chance that the whole species is going to be affected because the variation is going to be less, so adaptation to survive might be hindered. However, if you want to produce offsprings that have a specific trait and you want them to be genetically identical, then asexual reproduction could be a good way of obtaining that type of organism, meaning for organisms that produce certain molecules that are beneficial to humans. Moving on to sexual reproduction, this involves exchange of gametes, and these gametes include the male and the female one. The male gamete is the sperm, while the female gamete is the egg cell, or you can call it the ovum. During fertilization, the sperm is going to move towards the egg and it's going to fuse with the egg, producing a single cell we call the zygote. This zygote is going to divide by mitosis, creating more cells, and then a full individual is going to be produced. These are going to be diploid for humans. So here we're looking at the structures of gametes in humans. This is the sperm, which is the gamete in males. There is the headpiece, which contains enzymes to penetrate. These should be enzymes to penetrate the membrane around the egg. We can see the nucleus inside here, and then the numerous mitochondria that are found within this piece. The mitochondria provide ATP that is required for the movement of the sperm, and the tail is going to enable the sperm to move by propelling it forward. For the female gamete, it's actually bigger in size in comparison to the male gamete, and we can see it contains the nucleus and it contains all other organelles that are found within a cell. Going on to production of gametes, the male gametes are going to be produced in the testes, which are the male sex organs, and then the female gametes, which are the eggs, are going to be produced in the ovaries. During the process of production of these gametes, the cells divide by meiosis, not by mitosis. Remember, the organism is diploid, but it has to produce haploid gametes, so meiosis is going to occur so that the cells divide, producing half the number of chromosomes. During meiosis, the offsprings produced are not genetically identical to their parents or to each other. Next, we look at the transfer of sperms to the egg. Remember, we say the sperms are going to be motile, or they are able to move, and they go towards the egg. Like I said already, they have a tail, and this tail is going to enable them to swim. They have the middle piece that contains a lot of mitochondria to provide the energy required for swimming. The tail, which is the flagellum, is going to cause the movement through the fluid. So the sperm is going to swim and move towards the egg so that fertilization can occur. In most organisms, fertilization occurs internally, or we call it internal fertilization. However, some males can release the sperm on the surface of water, and the females can lay eggs in the water. So here fertilization takes place outside the body, and we call this external fertilization. During external fertilization, sometimes specific mating behavior occurs so that both the male and female can be in the same location before the release of the eggs as well as the sperm occurs, in order to increase the chances of successful fertilization. During internal fertilization, the sperms are going to be produced and ejaculated into the body of the female. Fertilization is going to take place in the body of the female, and because it takes place inside the body, there are no external factors that are going to hinder the movement, so there is a higher chance of fertilization taking place. And some form of sexual intercourse precedes ejaculation. So the sperm is going to swim inside the female and reach the egg so that fertilization can occur when the two fuse together, and the zygote is going to be produced. For humans, this zygote is going to be a diploid with 46 chromosomes, although the sperm and the egg cell each contain 23 chromosomes. And because the gametes in sexual reproduction are produced through meiosis, they are going to be genetically different, and this sexual reproduction leads to genetic variation among the offsprings. So we look at the summary of the life cycle. Here we can see a male adult and a female adult. Meiosis is going to occur so that the gamete cells are produced. Remember the adult has 46 chromosomes and here 46. When meiosis occurs, the number of chromosomes is going to be divided by 2. So here we have the gametes with 23 chromosomes. And these two are going to fuse in the process of fertilization, combining the 23 chromosomes from each of the gamete to produce a 46 chromosome zygote. And then mitosis will occur to create more cells in order to produce the embryo that is later going to become the baby. Now we look at the reproductive system. I'm going to begin with the male. We have the penis. This is where the release of sperm is going to occur. There is some erectile tissue which is going to stiffen during ejaculation. There is the scrotum which holds the testes. The testes are the ones that produce the sperm cells. And then we have the urethra here connected, of course. This is going to deliver the sperm out of the body. And then we have the semenovesicles that produce semen. For the females, we have the fallopian tube. This is where fertilization takes place. Sometimes it's called the oviduct. Then we have the ovary that produces the egg cell. We have the womb or uterus where implantation occurs in order for the pregnancy to be carried. We have the urethra. This is not part of the reproductive system. It's part of the urinary system. Then we have the vagina where the sperms are introduced. And then the cervix, which is the entrance towards the womb. Going on to reproduction in humans. During pregnancy, the amnion encloses the developing embryo. This amnion is going to secrete amniotic fluid, which protects the developing embryo from bumps as well as sudden movements. And once the embryo is recognizable as a human, it is called a fetus. Basically, after the implantation of the embryo, a placenta is going to be formed and we can see the tissues within the placenta. This is where the exchange of materials is going to occur between the mother and the fetus. We can see these blood vessels connecting the two, so oxygen as well as nutrients are going to leave the blood of the mother towards the fetus, and then carbon dioxide as well as waste like urea is going to leave the fetus towards the mother so that it's taken away and excreted out of the body. We can see there are many villi. This is to increase the surface area so that more absorption of substances occurs. And these membranes separate so that there is no mixing of blood, and this is going to protect both mother and the fetus, since we know some of the mothers carry babies who have different blood types, and that could cause a lot of immune-related conditions. So there is a membrane separating the two so that their blood does not mix. We can see this artery that carries the oxygenated blood. And again, remember, we've talked about two blood vessels that are arteries that carry the oxygenated blood. There is a pulmonary artery as well as this umbilical artery. So the umbilical vein is going to carry oxygenated blood. Also, the pulmonary vein carries oxygenated blood. So those are the two that are different. And all the other arteries carry oxygenated blood, and all the other veins carry the oxygenated blood. So here we can see the placenta and the umbilical cord. The foldings we see here increase the surface area for the reabsorption of substances between the mother and the fetus. So after the 9 months of pregnancy, the fetus sends a signal to the mother to begin the birthing process. And during childbirth, the cervix is going to dilate to allow the baby to pass through. And the muscles of the uterus are going to contract strongly, and the amnion tears, releasing the amniotic fluid. Strong contractions of the uterus will push the baby down through the cervix. And once the baby is born, the afterbirth, which is the placenta, as well as the tissues or membrane surrounding the baby, is going to be delivered as well. Next, we go to hormones involved in reproduction. At birth, we determine the sex of the baby by looking at the external sex organs, meaning those are the primary sex characteristics. But once puberty arrives, certain hormones are going to be produced, and these lead to secondary sex characteristics like we're going to see in both males and females. Hormones like FSH or follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone are going to be released. These come from the pituitary gland. FSH is going to cause the production of sperm in males, estrogen production, as well as egg maturation in females. And LH, which is luteinizing hormone, causes testosterone production in males, as well as ovulation in females. We'll talk about these hormones again when we learn about the menstrual cycle. So both estrogen and testosterone are involved in secondary sex characteristics. Estrogen is for female secondary sex characteristics, and testosterone is for male secondary sex characteristics. In boys, these include sperm production. There is going to be growth and development of male sex organs, meaning they become bigger. There is growth of armpits and pubic hair, as well as chest and facial hairs. There is increase in body mass, growth of muscles, and so many more. The voice is going to break, and there is going to be a higher sex drive. In girls, the menstrual cycle is going to begin and the eggs are going to be released by the ovaries every month. There is growth and development of female sex organs. There is going to be growth of armpit as well as pubic hair. There is going to be increase in body mass as well as development of a round shape or a more rounded shape. The voice is going to deepen without sudden breaking, and sexual drive is going to develop. Breasts are also going to develop. Next, we go to ovulation and the menstrual cycle. So this starts by the production of the hormone FSH, follicle stimulating hormone from the pituitary gland. This causes the egg to mature inside the follicle. We can see when this begins to increase, the egg size begins to become bigger, or the egg inside the follicle begins to increase in size. Also, we saw FSH causes the estrogen production to occur. So when FSH is at the highest, we see estrogen begins to be produced, or it begins to increase in concentration. We also see when estrogen is increasing, the walls of the uterus are also increasing in size. So estrogen causes the uterine walls to be repaired after menstruation, and it also slows down the production of FSH, meaning when estrogen reaches its peak, FSH is going to greatly decrease in concentration. Also, estrogen stimulates the production of LH. Again, we see when it's at its maximum, LH hormone begins to increase in concentration. Then we go to LH hormone. We see when it's at the maximum, that is about day 14 of the cycle. This is when ovulation occurs, because LH hormone is concerned with causing ovulation to occur, and this is when the egg is released from the follicle. After that, the remains of the follicle are going to turn into something called corpus luteum, and this corpus luteum is going to cause the production of progesterone hormone. So we see after that, progesterone hormone concentration is going to increase, and as it increases, there is going to be the maintenance of the uterine walls, because progesterone completes the development of the uterine lining and it maintains it so that it does not shed away. Progesterone also inhibits the release of LH as well as FSH from the pituitary gland. So this brings us to the end of this video on reproduction. Thank you for being with us. Do not forget to subscribe. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.